Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And tonight, we're talking Mr. Banks with a special Disney and Pixar biopic pitch edition of DirectEars. Oh boy, Dragon. So, guess what time of year it is?
What?
It's Oscar season, Dragon. Oscar season is in the air. All the crap from late August is come and gone from the cinemas. We're getting, really highly anticipated movies. We're getting movies that are buzzed about from the critics. We're getting movies that are going to be pleasing to general audiences. And Dragon, that's kind of the balance that we want to hit with our biopics that we're going to be pitching here, are movies that could win Oscars but also be hits for the general audience, because that is what Mr. John Lee Hancock likes to do in a nutshell. Am I right?
Yeah, basically John Lee Hancock, and I guess to some degree Ron Howard are kind of our gold standards for biopic.
Hancock, Ron Howard, Fincher for me too.
Yeah, sure. I'm say they're in the pantheon of kind of the biopic kind of gold standards.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Dragon, you came up with this pitch far. I just want to say in advance, you definitely have more work done on your pitch than I have on my pitch. Just throwing that out there because you've been working on it for a good number of months. So do you want to tell the origins of how you came up with all this?
Sure. Let me first at this, folks. And this to me, should we probably say what our biopics are before I get into the origin? Or?
Sure. You're going to be doing a biopic based on the Pixar story, basically the life and times of the Pixar Studios. And I will be doing a biopic based on the life of Walt Disney, specifically in 3 different eras of his life.
Yes. And essentially, folks, I was just kind of, Tiki and I, we had in the past, we've talked about the actor Stanley Tucci, and we've always remarked that, hey, Stanley Tucci reminds us, would be in a biopic about Disney or about DreamWorks, the go-to guy for that casting would absolutely, for Jeffrey Katzenberg, would absolutely be Stanley Tucci. And, we've always been kind of enamored with that, and I guess one day it just kind of struck me of oh boy, if I was kind of hit by a barrage of really good casting choices, and I was just kind of taking them down, man, that was a good casting choice, and I kept linking it to that Jeffrey Katzenberg thing, and it just kind of built to this whole cast of who would be who in a Pixar biopic, and kind of telling me. Basically, again, I just kind of got a mood with it, and then I kind of realized a whole string of casting choices. Well, yeah, what would that movie be like? And I brought the idea up to Tiki, and I basically said, it'd be great to kind of dust DirectEars out of mothballs, and let's get into that. Let's get some good old fashioned pitches going on here.
Yeah, and so for me, Dragon, you wanted me to also pitch a Pixar story, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you have that. The first thing I wanted to do was to basically do a live action, a movie version of Waking Sleeping Beauty, which is the great documentary about the Disney Renaissance, which would have probably crossed over some of that casting. I probably would have had Katzenberg, Tucci as Katzenberg as well. But then, Dragon, I decided to go way back deep into the well. I decided to go back into the roots of Disney, into the man himself, and take a very personal and, frankly, a very candid look at him. And, of course, I'm going to be... we'll get to the casting in a minute, but the name of my movie is called Uncle Walt.
That's not bad.
Uncle Walt.
It's not bad. I like that. So also, we should mention, these topics, of course, always evaluating, subjects such as Disney or Pixar, Walt, the man himself. There's other things that are, bound to be kind of re-explored in other stories from their lives and stuff. And, I was dying to hear what you were going to come up with for Waking Sleeping Beauty, so I guess at some point we'll have another.
But here's the thing with Waking Sleeping Beauty is that it's told so well in the documentary and so theatrically that, honest to God, I couldn't tell it in a more captivating way in a biopic format than they have it laid out in the documentary. You just have to take my word for that, man. I tried.
That's true, but I'm still, it would have complemented mine so well. That's why I was so looking forward to it, the story, how it's
you're gonna look forward to a dark. Here's the thing, Dragon. I assume your hypothetical director is going to be none other than John Lee Hancock.
Well, I'm saying on the whole, it'd be fantastic if John Lee Hancock directed both of our films. That's always the go-to.
Well, no. There's where you're wrong. My Walt biopic, Dragon, is specifically going to be in the vein of The Social Network. So I'm going to be having it done by Mr. David Fincher.
Well, I mean, look, I didn't nail one down 100% because I just figured, just, umbrellaing under just like all the greats, it's like in the style of John Lee Hancock. It's kind of in the style like The Founder meets Saving Mr. Banks. It's kind of in the style of that, but there's a lot of Chaplin in it.
So I guess mine is definitely, I would say it's a mix of Saving Mr. Banks and then The Social Network.
Yeah.
So
I was just kind of inspired by a lot of the greats, but if I had to nail down one, I'd say John Lee Hancock. If I can get some John Lee Hancock to direct, by all means. And also, folks, I agonized over this, and it's still not perfect. So just think of it as a rough draft, okay? It's still not to my likings. It's never going to be perfect.
I can say the same thing about mine, Dragon. Trust me. So I think what we should do, Dragon, is flip a coin. I assume you have 3 acts.
I have 3 acts. Yes.
Okay. Good. As do I. So we will flip a coin. You can call it in the air, and if you get it right, you get to tell me if you want to go first or second. All right.
You don't want to just go chronological. Walt came before Pixar. You don't want to just do that.
I guess Walt did come before Pixar. That's true. That's very true. I can't argue. I can't argue with you on that, buddy. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let me get all my images set up. As I said, my film is called.
We should explain the image thing.
Yeah, well, the images are going to be kind of like side-by-side comparisons to between who we cast and the people that are playing them. Or I'm sorry, I should say the roles, and then the people that we cast to play the roles.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want really deep cuts of a lot of my casting, and I assume Tiki, at least for some of his, may not have gone, kind of the traditional picks. Just want to see what they would kind of look like, see how much it matches up, and kind of the actor will kind of sway you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, Dragon. So we start our movie in. Shoot, hold on. Sorry, let me. I've got a lot of different moving parts here. Let me get my notes in order. Okay. I got it. We start our movie, Chicago, January 1920. Walt's returning home from the war with a package of war comics. Are you ready to hear who I cast as Walt?
I'm all of Twitter.
You're all Twitter. Well, golly gee willikers. Okay.
I have a pretty good idea who I'm looking forward to.
Oh, I'm sure you have a good idea who. All right. So there's young Walt himself, cigarette in hand, working on a drawing, and of course we're going to be casting.
Who does that look like?
Mr. Ryan Gosling himself. Oh yeah.
This is casting. It's always been rumored for Disney. I gotta tell you, it's hard to refute. I mean, it's pretty dead on.
Okay, so let's go one more time side by side. Walt. Ryan Gosling. Walt. Other Walt. All right, but here's the thing about this Walt, Dragon. Ryan Gosling's going to be playing Walt throughout his whole life, from his early 20s until his death in his 60s. So that's going to be requiring a lot of makeup work, which David Fincher has been known for with stuff like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, kind of right in his wheelhouse, telling stories that are kind of decade spanning. And this is definitely going to be a role that's going to stretch Ryan Gosling's acting muscles. I didn't want to just go the traditional route of having, something like Ryan Gosling playing young Walt and then, going back on the Tom Hanks bandwagon for older Walt. I want to see what Ryan Gosling can do, both as a young Walt as an older Walt. So we'll see how that goes from there. Anyways, so Ryan Gosling, he goes into the Chicago Tribune with his war comics. Now, Dragon, the interesting thing to note right off the bat with his war comics is that the panels are not in the traditional structure. You know what I mean? They're kind of there's some drawings that extend out of panels. There's circular panels. It's madness. It's anarchy. Walt loves it. Walt's going on this passionate speech about, how you should expand the art form and whatnot. And keep in mind, this is just Walt's drawings that he did during the war at this point. But of course, he doesn't get, alas, he doesn't get any calls. He doesn't get any business. He does get a few offers here and there. He's a struggling artist. He gets a few offers here and there, but not enough to pay the bills. And he's really wanted to get unconventional with it, though. And he's insisting on actually starting up his own company to start up cartoons, because he's really driven. We see Gosling basically, going through Chicago, kind of, really frustrated and really driven. Like, one of the things that's also going to drive through the film, Dragon, is Walt's hatred of Max Fleischer.
Really?
Yeah. It's kind of going to be played up as a joke, but like Walt's always going to be passing by TVs or movie theaters playing Max Fleischer shorts and saying like, that Fleischer, he did it again.
Kind of like the W.C. Fields thing. See, W.C. Fields was insanely jealous of Charlie Chaplin. Every time he was asked about him, he said like he's taken ill, and he never talked about Chaplin. He always just like he was so jealous of him.
Okay, so anyways, Walt quickly recruits a group of animators, and the most important one that we're going to be meeting very soon is going to be Mr. Iwerks, who Walt literally pulls out of an animation class. Now let's get that look of Iwerks right there. Kind of a, very much looks like a young Walt Disney himself, a little bit portlier. Iwerks, Dragon, is going to be the sympathetic kind of, he's basically going to be the sacrificial lamb in the story in a lot of ways. And his storyline is really going to kind of ramp up at the end of Act 1. Iwerks, as we see, basically the opening scene with Iwerks is a visual illustration of how Walt Disney is pulling Iwerks from a professional career, from basically Iwerks is doing model poses, like he's doing he's drawing models, he's drawing still life models in an art class. And Walt just comes in, Gosling Walt comes in like, I've got this great idea. We're gonna draw cartoons. And is just like, Walt, I'm in class, and the models are like looking at Walt like, what is this guy doing? Come on, you gotta join me, And so you ready to find out who Iwerks is gonna be, Dragon?
Yes, I'm on the edge of my seat. Who is it?
Okay. Iwerks is going to be Dan Fogel.
Huh.
So Dan Fogel is
isn't it Dan Fogelman?
What?
Is it, you sure it's Dan Fogel?
I'm pretty sure it's Dan Fogel.
All right, continue.
Dan Fogel, of course, best known for probably playing the lead character in Balls of Fury and also playing the best character in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them last year. And Dragon, this is exactly why I chose Dan Fogel for this role. Because Dan Fogel just came out of the woodwork for me as just a lovable actor with both comedic and dramatic chops. And to me, that's the kind of thing you have to have in Iwerks. Because Iwerks was very much a yes man to Walt Disney. Iwerks, in a lot of ways, as I'll illustrate throughout this first act, was more talented than Walt Disney. But, of course, Walt Disney had the more outgoing personality. Like, Iwerks was the introvert, Walt Disney was the extrovert. Walt Disney was basically able to capitalize on the talent of Iwerks, and that's what he really wanted to do throughout his early career. So that's something that we'll be getting into more and more as we go forward. All right. And Dragon, let me also just introduce, just so we have it in the pipelines, Mr. Roy Disney, Walt's trusted brother. A much older man than Walt was. He was an adult when Walt was a child, so I just want to keep that in mind when it comes to the casting.
See. Ah. Okay, let me see Roy.
Okay.
Okay.
So Michael Keaton is playing Roy Disney, and Roy Disney is, of course, the no-nonsense brother of Walt. He's going to be the person kind of steering the ship for the Disney company in a lot of ways. So basically, these three people kind of meet up. There's other background animators, Dragon, but as I said, I mostly wanted to focus on people who are going to be influential to the story throughout the whole time. And, I think your pitch is going to rely more on kind of like the background, like cameos and like, oh, hey, there's that person. And I'm not sure. I have kind of a more intimate, smaller cast, so I'm not really going to focus on a background animator if they didn't have anything to contribute to the overall story. So I just wanted to put that out there. Like, there were animators working back then, and it's kind of like the cooks at McDonald's, right? And the founder. Right. Like Iwerks is the one guy who who actually goes on to work for Keaton.
Oh, you mean Fred? He's a Fred.
Fred, right, exactly.
Yeah, Fred Turner, like the fry jockey who turned into the future CEO of.
Yeah, so you get it. It's like, and the rest of the animators are kind of just like in the background.
Okay.
Okay, so
You know what's funny about your Keaton casting? I almost made Keaton my Roy, the Roy E. Disney.
the Roy E. Disney, really?
And so he was it for the longest time that I found like an actor who I realized I could use who looks. He also looks like him. I figured Keaton would be going for the moon, and I was trying to consider a little bit of budget, and I was like, I don't know, I'll scale it down a little bit.
Nice. Okay, so let me see. Let me get back on track with my notes. And
all right, so,
Greg, do you notice that I'm that every time I come on camera, it's like it's flipping?
Well, I don't know what you mean by flipping.
Okay, see now I'm on this side, right? Like I'm on this side, and then say something.
Hello.
Okay, now I'm on this side.
No, you were in the same place, Tig. I didn't really see you move from.
I am okay. Well, it's going to bother me for the rest of the show, but whatever. We'll just deal with it, folks. I am sorry.
Like to use Gosling as your root image? Like you want to?
Sure. Why not? Why not? We shall use Ryan Gosling as my root image. All right. Or I could just stare at Keaton. No, we'll use Gosling. Okay, so so basically all three of the people have come together to form Laugh-O-Grams. They're basically crude little fairy tales, something to make a quick buck, until we can get on to more, to more flashy stuff. Come on, Ub, I need ya. And so basically this is kind of like the big turning point for Ub Iwerks. Like, should he join Walt? Should he go back to a professional career? Should he go back to an education? Well, Dragon, this is something that I'm going to be doing a lot in my pitches, of course, because Walt Disney's life spans long amounts of time. I'm going to be cutting, all right? So I'm going to be cutting from January of 1920 and from Come On Ub, I Need Ya, and Walt kind of extending a hand of Ub Iwerks to join the company. Scene 3 is in Hollywood, July 1923. Walt's arriving in Hollywood. The Laugh-O-Grams have crashed and burned. It's, Walt's basically kind of saying to people, who he comes into contact with, it's an embarrassment that I'm just kind of laughing off. We've got incredible things down the pipeline. And here's the deal, Dragon. The reason why Walt is in Hollywood now is because Universal Studios has bought a series of 12 Alice in Wonderland shorts. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And you know what these shorts are, right? The little girl with the... Yeah. So this was basically the money that kind of got the whole studio founded, because Laugh-O-Gram Studios was kind of a big disaster and it never really went anywhere. But the offer for the Alice shorts, and Walt basically personally funded the Alice short. We don't really see that, because like I said, there's not really time to fit everything from Walt's life in here. So I'm just kind of trying to hit the main events and kind of a good story and make a good story out of the main events. So anyways, so Walt has basically the money for this deal to produce the Alice shorts is basically given them enough to start up the Walt Disney Brothers Animation Studios. And it's important to note that it's Walt Disney Brothers at this point. Walt's brought out the old Laugh-O-Grams crew, including Ub Iwerks. Ub's already set up shop in the Walt Disney Studios, in the Walt Disney Brothers Studios before Walt got there. Like, Walt basically flew Ub out in advance to set things up. So you can tell at this point that Walt's, giving Ub a lot of responsibilities, a lot of work. But it's the name of the Walt Disney Studio, the Walt Disney Brothers Studios that's on the, building. Ub Iwerks basically isn't really getting any recognition, but he's okay for that for now. He's okay with it for now. So, Dragon, basically what happens is the Alice comedies are delivering a steady income at first, but then we get into something that's going to be a recurring thing, is that Walt is not going to be able to take criticism. Now, there was a character in the Alice comedies that was basically a cat, and, I'll be the first to admit, it's basically a ripoff of Felix the Cat. That's what it is. It's basically just a freaking cat that looks exactly like Felix. And this cat actually overtook the little girl in these shorts because it was more, this was Ub Iwerks' idea, and Ub Iwerks did have some good animation stuff. So this is basically kind of like Walt's first opportunity to kind of throw Ub under the bus. Like, Ub, you cheapened out, you know, like you went with this cat character, and now look where it's got us. Newspapers are laughing at us, I'm trying to do it where I'm trying to do the Walt Disney voice. It's probably not working too well. Anyways, the newspapers we are laughing stock, we're a laughing stock in this town. I don't know, but you could just imagine Ryan Gosling, you know, and his like manic, like fast-paced delivery.
Yeah.
So anyways, so the Alice comedies, as I said, they are delivering a steady source of income still, but the well is starting to run dry because people are getting sick of the Felix the Cat character, and Walt wants to start working on another character. So scene 4. Now, Dragon, this actually introduces Roy Disney, so we'll go back to Michael Keaton, okay? Roy Disney, Michael Keaton. So Roy Disney enters the scene as a door-to-door vacuum salesman.
Oh, God.
Isn't that so appropriate with the founder?
Yep.
Because that's what Roy Disney was doing at the time. Roy Disney was living in Los Angeles, but he wasn't really a part of the Disney company outside of doing the banking for them. That was his role. And, you know, he's actually like going door to door selling vacuums just to make an honest living. And he's basically telling Walt the same thing. You know, it's like, look, Walt, you know, you gotta think real here. You know, I'm sorry. Now I'm trying to do Michael Keaton doing a Disney voice, so bear with me. You gotta think real here, Walt. This cartoon stuff is a fad. It's not going to last forever. You know what's going to last forever? Cleanliness. All housewives want cleanliness. You think cleanliness and housewives are going away anytime soon, Walt? Okay, you get the picture. You get the picture. So Roy is basically, you know, Roy is almost kind of like more like a father to Walt than Elias Disney ever was, really. Elias, yeah. I'm sorry, you've corrected me on that before. So Walt basically bursts into the middle of Roy, you know, and Roy's doing a really good job of selling this nice young couple a vacuum. You know, they're very charmed by him. You know, Michael Keaton's pulling off his Keatonisms. You know, he's selling it. He's selling it. But then Ryan Gosling as Walt just comes bursting in. Roy, Felix the cat. And Roy is just like, Felix the cat, Walt? Felix the cat, Roy. It's brilliant. Fleischer had it all along. We can't make a cat, Roy. Everyone's sick of cats. We have to make. And then this is great. So Walt basically takes, you know, he basically tears a page out of a book that this couple has, you know, like a front page, you know, so like, you know, and he takes a pencil and he starts drawing, and you see the overalls, right? Like you see the overalls and everything. And we're thinking like, oh, wait, holy crap. Is this where Mickey
play? And it's Oswald.
And it's a fake out. Yeah. The next scene is doing the finishing touches on the Oswald design. You like that, though? You like that fake out?
I like the fake out. So tell me this. Is it like a really cool transition where, you know, Walt begins kind of drawing the thing and then it's revealed? No, it's actually which is a tongue-in-cheek thing of like, hey, Ub did a little bit more of the drawing than Walt did.
Yeah, right, exactly. And Ub is, like I said, basically Ub's role, you see, is that he is much more refined than Walt is. He's, you know, Walt's drawings are a little bit more crude. Ub is the one who's really giving Mickey the angular, you know, like the round edges and stuff and the things about his design. So, and that goes true with Oswald as well. You know, like the ears were a little bit more pointed in Walt's design of Oswald, whereas Ub's making them a little bit more rounded, you know, stuff like that. So, okay. So basically, so Walt, you know, Walt's basically going off about how he and Ub can create something so much better than Felix. You know, he's really fired up about Felix and how, like, we'll show them. We'll come up with a character better than anyone's ever seen. And keep in mind, this jealousy thing and this inability to take criticism is going to come back into play as the movie goes on. Okay, so scene 5. The Disney Brothers Studios expanding. They all go in. They go all in thanks to a deal with Universal on Oswald, and we all know how that's going to turn out. So Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is, you know, Walt becomes convinced it's the thing that's going to kill Felix. You know, Walt's just thinking, Fleischer's going to get caught dead in his tracks. This is also where we are introduced to Miss Lillian Bounds. who is an inker and painter at the time when they were doing the Oswald the Lucky Rabbit shorts. So let's get into her, Dragon, and let's get into her casting. So here we have the beautiful Miss Lillian Bounds. Just what a looker she is. My God, right?
Yeah.
Now, Dragon, what better modern day actress?
You better. Oh, I hope you. Oh,
it's Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, that's good too. Yeah, that's great.
You thought I was going to do Vera Farmiga, dude?
Yes, I did. I was so excited, but no, this
Dragon. I just want to see this up here. Vera Farr. She's coming.
All right, but no, seriously, this is still solid casting. I'm just all expecting another thing. This is great.
Look, Scarlett Johansson is just an incredibly classy woman, and I feel like she has the range to also pull off like a younger Lillian Bounds and older Lillian Bounds. Like she can have that same kind of like, dynamic performance that goes throughout the decades in the same way that Gosling would. And Lillian Disney is a woman who radiated class, and I feel like Scarlett Johansson would do a similar thing here.
Let me see Lillian again. Let me see I want to compare the faces here.
All right. There's Lillian. And there's Scarlett.
Yeah, I can buy it. It's not 100%. I can buy it though. I mean, I like it. It's just it doesn't look like. Again, not every actor's gonna be a 100% match, but I could buy her acting carrying her through that absolutely.
All right, fair enough. So let's get back to Walt. All right. Okay. So Walt basically strikes up a conversation with Lillian, and Lillian's kind of bringing up like, sinking painters are kind of underpaid, Walt. Don't you think that's a little bit of an issue? And Walt's like, oh, honey, if you want to be paid, you got to work your way up the charts. I tell you what, why don't you take me to dinner and I'll teach you a thing or two. And it just so happens that there's a premiere of a new Oswald short tonight, and Walt invites her to the premiere.
Okay.
And this isn't like a lavish Hollywood premiere or anything. I just want to put that out there. This is just like a
rap party.
Yeah, right. Essentially. Yeah, exactly. A rap party is a much better way, because really the only official, big budget premiere that they ever did was for Snow White and then Mary Poppins. Yeah. So I just want to put that out there. There's kind of a difference. So, anyways, here we have the first major confrontation between the brothers. So Michael Keaton is peeved, Dragon. Michael Keaton is not happy. You know why he's not happy?
Because he can't franchise.
Ironically enough, Keaton is definitely playing the guy who does not want to franchise in this movie. That's the funny thing. Keaton's the guy who's like very much kind of like, just get a nice job and be financially secure and you'll be fine.
So essentially he's John Carroll Lynch or Nick Offerman.
Yeah, essentially, yes. Yes, and that's another kind of layer to why I cast him,
I almost had John Carroll Lynch in mind, by the way. He was this close.
I almost had Carroll Lynch too.
He was a cameo, and I just figured, I'm already going too long. Darn it.
Okay, so Dragon, this was seriously the first substantial rift and the first sign of Walt's ego that's going to come into play as the movie goes on, which is the fact that Walt, behind Roy's back, changed the name of the Disney Brothers studio to the Walt Disney Animation Studio. And of course, Roy Disney not happy about that at all. Like, well, you're just making decisions on a whim. You're not telling me about them. I'm just as much of the part of the company. You sell vacuum cleaners, Roy. So really, so this is a really kind of personal, kind of cut down moment here. But anyways, we do get to the premiere as Walt and Lillian take the stage together. Walt's, kind of just boasting about how this is another thing where Up Works is kind of off to the side, and Walt's boasting about how he alone created Oswald, basically like, Oswald is my creation, and I feel very attached to the little guy. And of course, it's a big happy moment because Lillian's there, but at the same time, we see some rifts. We see some rifts starting to form. We see some tension. All right, Dragon, getting through it. I'm almost through Act 1. I have a few more scenes. Okay, so after the flashbulb goes off on Walt and Lily's picture getting taken, and this is an actual real picture of Walt and Lily in front of a movie theater, Walt is devastated because we cut right to the famous meeting for in February of 1928 at Universal Studios, basically the rights for Oswald getting taken out from under him. And, you know, Walt, we just basically get a close-up on Gosling's face as he just is kind of like reacting to it. Of course, he's smoking a cigarette, you know, that's a big part of it. And he's just kind of, you know, he just kind of has this shell-shocked look to him. Like, he's not really angry. He's not really explosive. He just feels defeated. But he phones up Ub at the train station, and he tells Ub, like, look, we got to come up with something that's even better than Oswald. And I know you can do it, Ub. There's a reason I brought you out here. It is because you're the best of the best, and I'm the first one to admit it. I'm a proud enough one to admit it. And so Walt's drawing crude designs on the napkin of the, you know, in the train, and then Ub is at his desk, and he's drawing a more elaborate, more professional, more well-rounded Mickey. And Dragon, I think that right there, that kind of juxtaposition between Walt drawing the crude designs on the napkin and then Ub actually at his desk professionally doing it, that is kind of like one of the big sort of beats of the movie that I really want to, like, that's one of the big, you know, it's almost kind of like a thesis statement image right there. Anyway, so Lillian beams at Walt because of how inviting the character looks as Walt and Ub are showing her the finished product of the character. But he doesn't have an inviting name, and of course we get the famous story where Lillian changes the name of Mortimer Mouse to Mickey, and also suggests touch-ups on a potential female mouse, and names that potential female mouse Minnie. So that's how that came about. Yeah. Okay, scene 7, and it was not an overnight success. Walt and Roy are basically taking their 2 Mickey Mouse shorts from movie house to movie house. This will be Plain Crazy and Galloping Gaucho. And nobody's wanting them. Finally, Walt sees the jazz singer, and we get a great scene of Gosling kind of like, you know, reacting to hearing sound in a movie for the first time. You know, the famous, you ain't heard nothing yet. You know, like Walt's kind of like in the movie theater, you know, smoking a cigarette in a movie theater, because you could do that back then, you know. I'm not afraid to go hard on the smoking, Dragon. But, so yeah, Albite Works is basically left on the sidelines of promoting Mickey, even though he has like solid ideas. You know, he's like, hey guys, you know, we could get in touch with like local newspapers. You know, basically Albite Works is kind of pitching the ideas that would lead to Mickey Mania. You know, kind of like the big pop culture boom that was Mickey Mania, like kind of merchandising Mickey and stuff like that. But Walt and Roy were kind of just like, no, we need to sell this thing. And this is, I guess, the first time that Roy is kind of on the franchise bandwagon. We have to franchise this, Ub. Okay, so anyways, so Walt, of course, gets the idea for Steamboat Willie, and in scene 8, we see the barn in which Steamboat Willie was recorded. Now, this is a very tense scene because Walt is incredibly demanding and professionalistic about getting the notes just right. You can tell there's already a tension brewing within the staff. And but by the moment they play back the footage with the sound, they all embrace. You know, it's like a magical moment. You know, when Mickey starts whistling and the whistling sound comes from the reel, it's like, yeah, we did it. You know, like it's a really big, like after a tense moment, you know, after a tense scene of like the tensions of Walt being so commanding, you know, kind of ratcheting up and ratcheting up and ratcheting up. There's a big release and everyone applauds. Everyone except for Mr. Art Babbitt. Now, Dragon, Art Babbitt is going to be the man who was essential in creating the terms that led to the studio strike, and he'll
I remember.
And Babbitt, he'll become a much more pivotal player in Act 2. But let's look at Babbitt. This might be my best casting, Dragon. It might see. Just be. I'm proud of this casting. Okay. So there's the man in real life,
right?
And
okay, go back to Babbitt. Okay, go back to Renner. It's not bad. I like that, yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
That's solid casting.
Yeah, Art Babbitt is Jeremy Renner. And of course, Art Babbitt is going to be the, the guy who is basically the main opposition to Walt as we get into the, the studio strike, which is essentially kind of going to be the...
Dag nabbit Babbitt.
The breaking point of Act of Act 1. So Art Babbitt, you know, he's at this point he's kind of mixed on Walt, right? Because he admires the technique and he admires the art that Walt is doing, but he just sees the fact that Walt is pushing animators basically to the limit.
Right.
So scene 9, we get a quick montage of Mickey Mania, you know, basically kind of like leading to an expansion. We kind of go through Mickey Mouse becoming a pop culture icon, you know, little kids buying the Mickey Mouse watches and stuff like that. We get like the famous photo session of Walt taking all the pictures, you know, the picture with the Mickey Mouse doll and everything. And then kind of leads us quickly through the silly symphonies, you know, Skeleton Dance, Flowers and Trees. We see record stores selling out of Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. And Walt is on top. Walt is on top here. And we're at the final days of the Walt Disney Studios before we move to Burbank. And we see Walt trying to push a multi-plane camera through a door. Just, you know, just a little sight gag. You know, come on, boys. It's got to fit in there somehow.
Such an Ed Wood-like thing. And it's
right,
cool.
Right. I needed for dimensions, boys. How are we going to portray... You know, how are we going to portray the forest of Snow White with just one dimension? I need those multiplanes in the studio, boys. So, okay. So Art confronts him, and he's just been, you know, he's just been really kind of overworked, and as some of the other boys have too. Walt says, you know, he believes in a family unit to get the job done, and he really wants to stress that. Snow White is going to go down in history, no doubt about that. And it's, you know, and it's the family's job to make it happen. Now, this is, of course, in the belt. Like, Snow White is pretty much set to be released. It's in the later days of the development of Snow White. Everything's pretty much almost, you know, almost worked on and gotten through. You know, Art nods and gets back to work, but of course he's not really satisfied. And, Ub continues to watch from the sidelines, and as soon as Art is out of the way, Ub confronts Walt. Now, Ub is basically kind of at his breaking point, and this is, you know, this is just kind of him going off at Walt. He's like, look, you might have Art fooled, but I know what you're all about. This isn't a team effort. This is your legacy, and I'm not going to be a shadow in your legacy any longer, Walt. And Walt, as we've already established, visibly shaken, not able to take criticism well, but also stands firm that there's other small-time animators in the room. You know, all right, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. He stands firm because there's other small-time animators there, and he kind of doesn't want to look like a pushover to Ub, right? So basically, he walks over to Ub's desk, takes the cigarette he's been smoking out of his mouth, crushes the cigarette into Ub's coffee, and gives Ub a death glare, and Ub leaves.
That's nasty.
And that's the end of Act 1.
Yeah, boy.
Thoughts?
I liked it. It's, I mean, I'm impressed in, like, kind of, you know, the ender you said there, and the whole, like, the Art Babbitt seeds. I'm liking the seeds that are being planted.
I'm
liking the seeds. I'm not quite. I mean, are we going to go back to some of that? Some of this, you had like that shift in narratives. Or were you just going forward? Or is that like kind of the Dunkirk stuff you were talking about?
What do you mean? Oh no, I kind of gave up on the Dunkirk.
Because that's what I was expecting when you brought that up. I was thinking.
No, okay. Here's the thing. There are 3 different eras, but I gave up on trying to have like a Dunkirk style cutting between the 3 eras. So
okay.
Yeah, because basically this Act 1 is basically everything from the early days of the Disney Brothers Animation Studio up until, you know, Snow White's about to become a success. And basically it's kind of like, you know, we all know where Snow White's going to go as Act 1 ends. But of course, the big thing is that this friendship that's kind of been, you know, we kind of saw the deconstruction of the friendship as Walt took Mickey Mouse and kind of took him on the run and sort of started ignoring Ub. So that's kind of like the main storyline I wanted to get out here was, you know, Ub basically being in the shadow of Walt as Mickey took over, as all these expansions are happening to the studio.
That's not bad, and I like that. I kind of think it could be the kind of the drama of it all could be hit a little more. Again, I think the ending was more what I was looking for with that. I think that story's good. I think it should be kind of pushed a little bit. Just it just sounds like I'm just kind of saying that because just for plot reasons. It doesn't really sound like I'm just kind of really I'm not really getting where that's coming from with this character. But I'm just again I like it. I would kind of nail it a little bit more.
Okay.
All right. I guess for me then.
Yeah, Dragon. I'm sorry. I'm going to be typing, so my mic might be muted, but just keep going. I'll be listening.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So my working title for my Pixar biopic is A113.
Nice.
A113. This takes a lot of influence. Essentially, it's a biopic based on the Pixar story, and as well, there's this great book that was released, and I encourage everyone to kind of look into. It's called The Pixar Touch by David Price. Really good book, and there's a lot of stuff that is like kind of the unknown stuff from the Pixar stories in that book. So it's kind of a mixture of those, like the untold stories of Pixar are in that book. A lot of really interesting stuff. Basically, it's a more personal version of the Pixar story. Mm-hmm. So those two are kind of it's like a light adaptation of those two. It's kind of it's a mixed light adaptation of those two, and it's predominantly the story of it's predominantly the Pixar story. John Lasseter is the protagonist. It does cover other characters within Pixar. It's about the company, it's about Pixar itself, but John Lasseter, as you would imagine, is the driving force, and it's kind of raising the question of, how does a man, the main, I guess the thesis for the movie is, how does a man become Walt? How does a company become the next Disney, or so popular that it is absorbed into Disney? How does it kind of like John Lasseter and John Lasseter he was excommunicated from Disney, and he comes back to a warm welcome. That's kind of the genesis of the story.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to go fast and loose with this here. Okay, so we open the movie. We see clouds. We see the sky, very Aiken the Toy Story. We come down here and we see the exterior majesty of the Emeryville, California Pixar location that we're all accustomed to. We are set in September of 2005. Again, we see the exterior, and as we go in, again, we're kind of like trying to feel a little bit like the Pixar movies. We're not trying to compete with them, really kind of retell like the exact scenes from the Pixar films, but like we have like a vibe of Toy Story here and there, and we kind of mirror some shots and imagery. Like again, we're going through a big old kind of the Monsters Incorporated building, like we're going through the Pixar location. So, and basically here, like we have these great shots, and like we're at Pixar now in our story. Like all this 2005 stuff is now, and the rest of it will be in flashback. So you have now and flashback. So you have the opening credits kind of play over these familiar locations, and we kind of do a little kind of a deep cut here. We're in the POV of someone part of a tour group, and we are welcomed by Tia Crater.
All right, let me get her up on screen.
And essentially, this is a pun on the fact that Pixar does give tours, unfortunately, not to the public, only to the press. But at the same time, they give awesome tours, and these tours often are, they have like you can go into the employee store, they have like all the great Pixar products and stuff. So it's kind of like, hey, maybe if people see this movie, maybe they'll open it up to more public tours, or at least open up the Pixar store. Who knows? It's a dumb old pipe dream, but at the same time, it's, tour is kind of our introduction to all the stuff we know about Pixar. They open up a little bit of familiarities. There's Tia Crater, the shading person on the Pixar films, in charge of shading, lighting. She has that famous saying, we sand the undersides of the desk. That's what John Lasseter tells us. And she did for a time give Pixar a tour. I don't think she does it anymore, but at a time, possibly around 2005, she would have given this sort of tour. So I'm trying to nail that. And basically, she's kind of guiding the group, kind of giving little anecdotes and tidbits like the one I just said about the sanding undersides of the drawers. And we see the familiar displays of Pixar as we know it, again, stuff we've seen in the Pixar story. Like, I don't think the Luxo display's out there quite yet, but pretty much everything but that is still there. So, we have the Buzz and Woody made out of Legos. We have the Mike and Sully display. We have the Incredibles little display there. John Ratzenberg is at the cereal bar. Well, John Ratzenberg came in because Pixar has this awesome little cereal bar, literally a room filled with every cereal in like plexiglass containers. Really cool. And we build John Lasseter. Here we go. Oh, by the way, sorry, Tia Crater. Yes, Tia Crater. So that's what she looks like here. And you'll notice, let's go to who we got. We got Angela Kinsey playing Tia Crater. Yes. It's funny enough, a lot of the casting choices I have are from The Office, and Pixar is self-admitted. A lot of their people there do look like actors from The Office, so I kind of took a little bit of that to heart, and I noticed. I was just kind of going through like kind of a lot of TV. I have a lot of TV actors in this, and I was kind of going through them. I noticed that a few of them were pulled from The Office, and it kind of fit like a glove. And Angela Kinsey, she's a very funny actress, and I just felt she looked enough of Tia Crater. It's not the best picture we have of Tia Crater. We're just going to have to kind of take my word on it. So I think it's kind of it's a decent enough likeness. And she's only in there for this scene. So honestly, it's opening and then she's kind of out of it. So, All right, let's see. So we tease John Lasseter. We're going to meet shortly. We tease John Lasseter. We build him up with the shirt. Like we see a shirt fill the frame. And as he is leaving like the Pixar screening theater, the big old kind of theater. And he's in a shirt. Let's just say it has Toy Story on it, but he's just in various of his famous shirts. And the idea he wears a shirt that he's feeling like, and there's going to be a lot of reminiscing. Let's say Toy Story is very key and all that. So he's wearing a shirt with Buzz and Woody on it. So he's getting up, and it's like you feel the heft and the importance of, oh boy, we know who that is. Like it's like the Jaws film. And eventually, basically, like as these two are like kind of making their way, they kind of bump into each other on the way. And John Lasseter's like, "Hey, surprise guest! It's John Lasseter, the guy I was just talking about, guys." And John Lasseter, of course, as you see, very friendly guy. And by the way, keep this as the root image, okay?
Okay.
So. Of course, John Lasseter, big old friendly guy, big old friendly smile, and we know him, we love him, and we finally meet him. And the actor I cast as the current John Lasseter is the great Stephen Root. Yes.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's the face is pretty spot on.
Oh yeah, a little scraggly in the picture, but you get it, folks. It's pretty accurate. Stephen Root is he's a great actor. The only worry I had is
looks like a very distressed, hasn't shaved in a week Lasseter.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty good likeness, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I've liked Stephen Root in a lot of things. Like he was in that Bryan Cranston biopic. He was in LBJ. He was in. Of course, many people. If you look at the Stephen Root from Office Space, he looks almost identical to John Lasseter in many respects, and like the younger John Lasseter. And the only worry I have is that he was getting a little up there in age, but he looks so perfect, like kind of current Lasseter. And John Lasseter is one of those guys who kind of reaches a point where he doesn't age. So I mean, he's looked pretty consistently, from like mid 2000s to today, he looks exactly the same.
I hear that.
That's kind of the thing you have with Stephen Root. So I figured I would go with him. I had a few other choices for John Lasseter, but Stephen Root was always like the one I knew he has like the great acting capability. I had one for John Lasseter, so I buckled down and said, yes, let's get him. So anyway, John Lasseter, he's just bumping into him. He's all smiles, like, "Oh, hey guys, welcome." Give him like the usual pleasantries of John Lasseter. And, he hugs Tia Crater because John Lasseter's a real hugger kind of guy. He hugs everyone at Pixar. He's kind of made a point of saying that. So. Yeah, he hugs Tia Crater, says hello to the folks, and he's going to his office, do, as he does. He sits in his chair, and we've seen John Lasseter's office, filled with toys from Toy Story, Bugs Life, the whole lot, and a little bit of Monsters, Inc. He's got the grand shelf. He's got a nice little office. He's got a little lamp. So he sits in his chair, and we notice, and here's the thing I wanted to hit upon. One of my favorite things of John Lasseter that we've never really seen developed, I really wanted to hit in this movie. Okay. He's troubled. John Lasseter is troubled. And we rarely see John Lasseter not just being the happy-go-lucky guy that he is. So he's troubled. He's getting a long look at the toy shelf, the Buzz, Woody, all these icons of Pixar. And he notices, and basically he notices that the Luxo lamp, it almost takes a double take. It's kind of a Breaking Bad touch here. He notices the Luxo lamp, because he does have a white Luxo lamp in his office. He notices that it is on, and John Lasseter he's like, oh man, he's kind of sullen in the moment. So he turns it off because, I just can't look at it. Turns off the lamp, a little bit of a mystery opening, and then we're in flashback. So the majority of this is in flashback. Okay. So we cut to, again, like the darkness of like lights being turned out to the past, to 1981. It's 1981. We cut to a screening of his short film, Lady in the Lamp. Lady in the Lamp, and basically we're at Cal Arts. It's 1981, and the idea is sort of like an alumni celebration Q&A type thing. This is like sort of a, hey, welcome back, and show the students, like, these are the guys whose short films have gotten them into Disney. And this is very true. Like each of these Cal Arts graduates, they were inducted into Disney once these short films were kind of seen by them. And John Lasseter was Lady in the Lamp, which of course we go from the modern Luxo lamp to the previous lamp. That's kind of funny that John Lasseter's destiny is tied into inanimate lamps.
Mm-hmm.
So we see John Lasseter. You need Oh yeah, I'll introduce him here. I might as well. So yeah, we have John Lasseter, young John Lasseter, who we have played by Justin Swain.
I know nothing about this guy.
Well, you've seen him before. He was in Luke Cage.
Oh, he was in Luke Cage. Who'd he play in
Yes,
Luke Cage?
he was Misty's partner. Remember, he was.
Oh yeah,
Bailey.
yeah, right. Bailey. Okay, okay, gotcha,
What do
gotcha.
you think? I think it's
Okay, let me see young Lassiter or young Lassiter. I just shipped Lassiter and Ratzenberger.
Oh God,
Ratzeter.
you're a
Okay.
sick man, Tiki.
Yeah, no, I can see it. I can totally see it.
He really, I think he's a dead ringer for '90s Lasseter, but that image that you have is like kind of '70s Lasseter. But either or, it's. I think I'd keep.
You said young. I keep on trying to say.
Stop saying.
You said young Lassiter. Okay, so I got young Lassiter.
No, it's fine though. Again, I think you get it though. It's perfectly
yeah.
fine. It's fine. I'm saying I think he's good for young Lasseter because I think he has enough of those similarities. Anyway, so again, I was just kind of caught by that guy, and I know it'd be kind of a gamble because he's going to have to really shoulder Act 1 and kind of half of Act 2. But anyway, I was impressed. I'd roll the dice on this guy. He looks a lot like him, and I was basically struggling to find a young actor who could be John Lasseter because I'm so attached to Stephen Root, but I can only make him so young. And I basically kind of happened upon like, oh my god, with the glasses on, he looks enough like young John Lasseter. It's perfect. They're just kind of happened upon him, and that's the only way you can make that casting work. Find a guy who looks like him when he's young, and it would look like have to find actors who look just like the young versions that age into the old versions. Anyway, so our three alumni: it's John Lasseter, it's Joe Ranft.
Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. Build up.
Let's see Joe Ranft, and we have young Joe Ranft, and and Joe Ranft would be played by Rainn Wilson.
And I think this is a spot on casting, especially with the beard that I managed to get.
Yeah, and Rainn Wilson, honestly, what it boiled down to with Joe Ranft is I need to imagine an actor who could get away with voicing Heimlich the Caterpillar.
right.
And I had some really weird choices for Joe Ranft, and I just kind of happened upon Rainn Wilson because I think he's a comedic. He can be a comedic actor, but at the same time, I think he has kind of a quiet resonance about him that we've seen in kind of roles like Super. Like the ending of Super is the James Gunn film Super. Rainn Wilson is really good in that movie, and he has some great dramatic stuff in that movie. I think kind of captures kind of what you want in Joe Ranft. And Joe Ranft is a very important character in the story. He is much like he is the heart and soul of Pixar. He is the kind of the heart. He has to be the heart and soul of Pixar in this film. So we have, and he's John Lasseter's oldest friend. So it's John Lasseter, it's Joe Ranft, and John Lasseter's other oldest friend, Brad Bird, who we meet in the scene.
Okay.
And Brad Bird's mostly a cameo in this. He has like 2 scenes. So we have Brad Bird, and we have basically, especially, he fits young Brad Bird, especially the great Max Landis.
Yes. I kind of laughed when I saw this. Yeah.
Yeah, but also Brad Bird had longer hair when he was younger too. So that would.
Well, yeah, this doesn't really reflect that.
Yeah, this is current Brad Bird. Anyway,
this is not current Brad Bird.
Yeah, that is current Brad Bird. Well, I'm saying it for the current. I'm thinking the framework 2006. That's 2006 Brad Bird.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
My bad. Okay.
Anyway, regardless, just Max Landis has the energy of Brad Bird. So for young Brad Bird, I never questioned that was going to be Max Landis because he has the energy of the pitch man that would be Brad Bird.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so basically, we see these 3 guys and they're showing the films that got them the Disney job. Let's see. We go around with them. We get kind of from each of them like a tidbit of their animation philosophy. It kind of informs their styles. Joe Ranft, it's kind of finding kind of the likability of character of Brad Bird. Of course, it's just kind of it's kind of finding it's kind of immersing yourself in the world of the character and kind of the humor of the character. Anyway, John Lasseter, of course, we get kind of his belief of kind of the endless kind of well of intrigue you get with inanimate objects. Basically, how you can find character in inanimate objects, which of course is his bread and butter, and what kind of lays the groundwork for honestly all of his films. Yeah. So, well, at least everything but Bug's Life. Not saying it's bad. I'm just saying not inanimate. They're live. So, anyway, so he's like the last one we build to, and it's basically a young John Lasseter kind of talking about inanimate objects. being kind of the key to like kind of really good stuff in animation. So let's see. So after they leave, the idea is these guys kind of getting a little lay of the land after the Q&A is done. These three guys hang back because John Lasseter has something to show him. John has something to show him, and tells the story in an empty room. It's just basically they're in the old Cal Arts room. He's telling them the story of how he was inspired by. It's John Lasseter telling a story. It's like what kind of makes him such a great kind of filmmaker to this day. The guy can tell a story. So he basically tells the story of how he was inspired by Tron and how he got a glimpse at computer animation being done at Disney, and have that kind of inspired him and Glenn Keane to work up this Where the Wild Things Are test. And what he does is he shows the Where the Wild Things Are test in this dark room. It's he's kind of sneaking it to him. He's kind of showing up that way. That's why they hung back. And Brad Bird's they're all encapsulated by it. Brad Bird saying, "Oh my God, John, this is the future of animation. Look at this. The computer generated backgrounds and Where the Wild Things Are. This is amazing. It's only a 30-second test, but it's impressive." And basically they're all sold on it. And as the scene's ending, basically as John's kind of packing up the stuff, and he's just saying, like, "Oh, wow, right? I mean, guys, imagine we can do like a whole movie like this again, kind of planting the seeds for the big dream." And it's kind of like it's very much like the Muppet dream of like there's singing and dancing, making people happy. It's very much kind of the Muppet kind of clingy dream of this. Making a full-length computer animated film. And Joe Ranft, and this is true, and this is kind of again the heart of the film, like thing that dawned on me with Joe Ranft in this whole process is that Joe Ranft promised to work on John Lasseter's first feature film. When he does a feature, he's going to be there because they're buddies. John Lasseter says, "You betcha, Joe, you'll be my first call when I get a movie." So they walk out of the room, and then we reveal A113 on the door.
Nice.
Like again, we have I do have Pixar Easter eggs all throughout this. So they have John Ratzenberg A113, and we'll see a little bit later on. Let's see. So then we cut to 1983. John Lasseter is giving the toaster pitch. He's using the Joe Ranft boards because the idea this was, as far as Joe Ranft was concerned, this was John Lasseter's first film, so he's fulfilling that promise with him working on Brave Little Toaster. He basically he's like telling this to Ed Hansen. Ed Hansen's the guy. Let's about it. So we meet the sturdily stone-faced Ed Hansen.
Okay, give me a sec. Sorry. Okay.
I think it's Alfie. I don't know if it's.
I might not have him then. I apologize.
All right. Just anyway, Ed Hansen. Ed Hansen he's famously the guy who fired John Lasseter. So he's the guy he was kind of representing what was wrong with Disney animation at that time.
Uh-huh.
So let's see. So basically, he was given the pitch, and he's making reference to he's talked over the feasibility of computer animation, with Ed Catmull, who essentially was the leading scientist in computer animation. Again, we're name dropping Ed Catmull. We'll meet him soon, just not yet.
Okay.
Just the point is, like, you have a little reference to him. It's like, and he's basically saying, "Oh man, I've looked at all this stuff. We can make a movie based on all of this stuff." And then Ed Hansen just kind of stops him in the middle, and says, "Okay, look, answer me this, Lasseter. Tell me, will it? How much is this going to cost?" John Lasseter says, "Well, no more than the average cost of an animated film." And he says, "We only do animation if it's faster or cheaper." Like a moment of like dreadful pause goes by. "I think we're done here." Leaves the room. And John Lasseter's kind of shell-shocked. He's like kind of lugging the boards back to his desk. Mm-hmm. And then he gets a phone call. "Ed Hansen would like to see you." He goes to his office, and Ed Hansen, again, like a moment of dreadful pause goes by again, and Ed Hansen just tells him, "Well, John, your project and your work, and your current projects and work with the Walt Disney Studio are terminated, and therefore are completed. Therefore, your future with us is terminated." Essentially, basically saying your project's done here. We have no longer committed to keeping you on here. So essentially, you're fired. Mm-hmm. And then we have just kind of the sad scene of John and Joe Ranft talking as John is packing up his stuff, which includes the Luxo lamp from his desk. It's kind of a symbol of the movie. He puts the Luxo lamp in the box, the firing box that we all know too well. Right. Joe Ranft hears rumors that, "Hey, I hear Toaster's going to be developed outside the studio," which we know eventually it will be. Basically, in a few years, they're still going to do Toaster, but not as, because Lasseter kind of put it in the framework, so it's like they have to make it, technically, but not the way he wanted to. And Joe Ranft basically says, "Oh yeah, I've heard they're still going to work on Toaster. I mean, after what they did to you, I don't even think I should." John encourages Joe to stick with Toaster, which he does. Saying, you know, well, again, I'm taking some artistic liberty to how this conversation went, but we know Joe Ranft did work on Brave Little Toaster, so I'm figuring John Lasseter saying, hey, look, just work on it, tell a good story like I know you can do, and just don't be discouraged because of me. It's a sad goodbye with these two friends. As John's like walking out all sad, Joe reaffirms the promise. Hey, the minute you get a film, though, you call me. I'm there. Mm-hmm. Right, Joe. I'll keep that in mind. And then we have that sad image of John Lasseter leaving the Disney lot.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Like, only defeated.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sad Lasseter. I got a lot of sad Lasseter in this. I had triumphant Lasseter, but I also got a lot of sad Lasseter.
Lasseter is like the sad clown.
Okay, let's see. So the transition from him leaving the Disney lot in the past to now, 2005 now, John Lasseter's just kind of awake because, again, he turned the light out. He might have kind of did a power nap in his office. He's awakened by a phone call from Steve Jobs, who, again, we don't meet yet. We just get a voice of Steve Jobs. From Steve Jobs. Now, Jobs is basically, he sets the stakes. Steve Jobs sets the stakes and basically says what our current dilemma is. Basically, we're solving the mystery of why John Lasseter is so bummed out right now. Disney has gotten a new CEO. This is during basically we get exposited. This is during the whole time of the whole will Disney partner with Pixar? Will they buy Pixar? Will the contracts break? Will Pixar have to find another studio to work with? All that stuff's brewing around this time, 2005. Like, this is the point exactly of no one knows what's going to happen. Michael Eisner has just been let go. They have a new CEO coming in, but they have no idea what's going to happen. So there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of low morale around Pixar, and Steve just being very kind of curt about it, saying, "John, I can't get a read on this guy. He just kind of showed up, and we should just prepare to go on the market again, like we did way back when." And it's a change, and I don't think there's any chance we're going to get a deal with Disney going on. We're going to have to look elsewhere. So again, really gloom and doom in this opening. Okay, then we cut from that phone conversation. John just kind of still looking kind of bummed out on the phone to John looking bummed out on the phone in the past. With Brad Bird. Brad Bird's on the phone. Brad Bird's just like saying, "Oh yeah, John, I have my sympathies." Just kind of like a mini rant on Disney at that time, how Disney wasn't right. And this is true. At that time, Brad Bird, he was he left. He was kind of fired from Disney too. Again, they're both kind of in a similar point because that's what
kind Disney, of like a badge of honor to be fired from Disney at that point.
Yeah, and that's essentially
passage. Like Don Bluth was in that club, Tim Burton was in that club.
Exactly. That's kind of what Brad's just trying to kind of pick John up with by saying, "Oh yeah, look, John, I'm sad to say, I mean, Disney isn't the studio that we grew up with anymore. That's it. They're all suits now. They're all like kind of they do films by chart now. It's not the Disney we grew up with." Right. They're not the 9 old men, John. They're not the mentors that we grew up with. I was asking John, like, "Well, yeah, John, what are you going to do next?" And he makes reference to, "I'm going to, Brad, I'm just going to a SIGGRAPH conference." It says it has the Queen Mary. It's basically a SIGGRAPH conference with like kind of an after party on a boat, which was called the Queen Mary, and that kind of transitions us into a big moment for John Lasseter, where he bumps into the guy he had talked to, Ed Catmull.
Okay.
Yes, now we meet Ed Catmull. So we meet the great Ed Catmull. Ed Catmull, of course, if there's 3 people who are responsible for Pixar, it's John Lasseter, it's Steve Jobs, and of course Ed Catmull, the artist, the entrepreneur, and the scientist. Ed Catmull is the scientist. Mm-hmm. Now, Ed Catmull is played by Michael Gill.
I haven't watched House of Cards, but I mean, let's just do the back and forth comparison.
Tiki, where you've seen him from. He's from Mr. Robot.
Is he Elliot? Or no, not Elliot. Gideon, right?
Yeah,
Gideon.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, he was the friendly boss.
So let me do a back and forth. I'm sorry, it's been a while since I've watched Mr. Robot. Back and forth. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it hit spot on. I like how you specifically wanted me to get a picture of him with the beard. So yeah, very much very good casting there for sure.
I think the neat thing is that he can be young and old Ed Catmull too, so I thought there was kind of enough kind of leeway there. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so he bumps into Ed Catmull, and very much how it happened in real life. Ed Catmull. This is still in '83, by the way. So Ed Catmull's asking him like the progress of Toaster because again he told him about where the wild things are and like how he was working on. He was asking him questions about preparing a CG interpretation of Brave Little Toaster, which did not go through. He's asking him, "What's the update, John? What's the update?" And poor John Lasseter, and that's something I hadn't realized. I wanted to kind of read some more emotion into it, where John tells him, and again you feel sympathy for him because he's just saying, well, Ed, they shelved it because he's lying to he doesn't want to crush himself or basically he's too ashamed to admit that he was fired. So he says, well, Ed, they shelved it. I'm kind of a free agent at the moment. And again, your heart goes out to the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. So the two of them just kind of air their thing, basically kind of air out the similar dream that basically these three men will share the same dream of Ed, Steve, and John will share the same dream of the first full-length computer animated film. They kind of bond over that dream for a moment, like, oh, how great would it be if we can even go beyond where our vision for Brave Little Toaster was? And he says, oh yeah, that'd be great. So as John just kind of basically as Ed walks away, he's on the phone, and he's like, oh yeah, Alvy, I won't believe I bumped into John Lasseter. And then we have on the other side of it, let me see. We might as well go to I'm sorry, we might as well go to Alvy Ray Smith a little bit here. So we meet Alvy Ray Smith on the phone. He's on the other side of the conversation. But yeah, that's him now. Yes, I mean,
okay.
Bear in mind, I was hoping for him younger, but this is
I couldn't find a young picture of him.
There's Alvy Ray Smith. Alvy Ray Smith essentially was kind of like it was he and Ed Catmull, the guys were behind all the computer animation, and he is played by Curie. God, it's Curie. Wait a second, I have it from me. It's he's played by Ed. Had it written down, folks, but here it is. It's Curie Gavin, who Tiki and I recall from Agent Carter.
Dragon, I'm sorry, I couldn't find a picture of this guy.
I'll take my word for it, folks. He was Calvin Chadwick from Agent Carter.
Okay, I'm sorry. Dragon, who is Richard Jenkins supposed to be playing?
Richard Jenkins was Ed Hansen, who we...
Oh, who I didn't have. Oh, okay, my bad. I didn't have a picture of Ed Hansen, and then I don't have a picture of this guy. Okay, but
yeah, the point is that Alvy Ray Smith and the
it should be good to go for now on, I think.
All right. Anyway,
it should be.
But again, just if anyone has seen Agent Carter, he was the husband of Whitney Frost, who who eventually he was the husband of Whitney Frost. Okay. Anyway. Who kind of looks like Alvy Ray Smith. He was kind of a chubby guy, and basically he put a beard on him. I think it's essentially Alvy Ray Smith. I mean, he looked very kind of similar and kind of in body type. And I like that actor, so I'd give him a shot as Alvy. And Alvy doesn't have a really big part, but he's in a few important scenes, I guess. Anyway, so the reason it's an important scene is Alvy on the other side of this conversation is, wait, you mean Lasseter isn't working for Disney anymore? No. Are you crazy? Get him. We need an animator, darn it. We have all this. We can computer animate. That's the thing that's going to give us basically, again, if we want to make the first computer animated film, guess what we need, Ed? We need an artist. That's the thing, Alvy kind of the forward thinker of the two. Ed's just kind of like he's the guy developing the technology. This is the guy you're thinking of like how can we apply the technology? They're kind of like the McDonald's brothers essentially for this film.
Sure.
Essentially. Anyway, so then this is the funny stories that he immediately quickly get him fast before he leaves, and he quickly hangs up. He's running out there to hire John on the spot. Okay, let's see. So off of the Queen Mary, we are now at the yes. So basically, this is the section that I call "Welcome to Lucasfilm," where basically Lucasfilm gives us computer animation 101, where we meet a lot of the early Pixar contributors, and we basically in a sequence we are introduced to them, and we get kind of just so we know it later on, like how animation works. We see the wireframes, see all the triangles, how computer animation is made, how John Lasseter is kind of taught. We meet, and basically we go to each station of an animator, someone who works on the process, and that's how we meet them. And it's how we introduce them without taking up too much time. It's we meet Ralph Guggenheim, who was eventually a producer on Toy Story. He's known John Lasseter that long. That's the ideal. He's a guy who really we're gonna go to Ralph Guggenheim. There we go. So there's Ralph Guggenheim. And Ralph Guggenheim is played by Mark Van. There we go. I think it's pretty close.
I think so too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mark Van. He was Eckley on CSI, and I was watching the TV randomly one day, and it wasn't even on CSI. It was on like a different show. I was like he was guest starring. And I was like, wait a minute, look at who can play Ralph.
Oh God,
perfect. There's a lot of serendipity on a lot of this casting. I got to be honest.
Yep.
Anyway, let's see. So we meet Ralph Guggenheim. We meet Bill Reeves. Bill Reeves was the technical. Basically, this is the guy who he scans in the sculpted models. There we go. That's essentially what he's doing right there. He has like a clay sculpt of Woody's head, and he basically trace it with like a little kind of little pen device that would basically scan it in the computer like you're seeing there. That's essentially what he did in the animation process. And for the young Bill Reeves, I have a notable actor. I got Seth Green.
I love this casting, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Fits perfectly.
Exactly.
And I think Seth Green has more range than people give him credit for.
He does, and without going into every, I didn't go into every team members. The main ones are, it's Ralph, it's Bill Reeves, and it's Alfie, who we've already kind of met, and they all formally meet Lassiter, and Lassiter has the idea of, he has the shape idea, which again, a big kind of like, how does a man become the next Walt Disney? He had a lot of John Lasseter's history does mirror Walt's, because he has the geometric shape,
right,
idea, like Ub and Walt had with Mickey. The whole how John Lasseter basically said, well, what they could do is back when they were doing Wall-E B, which, by the way, the stuff they're demonstrating leads to Wall-E B. So basically, it's like we get to see Wall-E B being made before our eyes, and John Lasseter kind of has the idea, wait a minute, why don't you guys, if you can create a program that can start the beginning and middle of a shape, basically if you can create shapes on the computer, why not build a character that way? That was kind of John's idea. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that basically after we see the kind of punchline being, and hey, there's Andre and Wall-E B, which essentially was, he didn't direct that, but he had a great hand in making that happen. So hooray! The two of them they're all kind of pounding around. Basically, what next? Well, we should develop a computer next. Basically, develop the Pixar image computer, and we had like a little throwaway bit of Alf, like Ed's asking, hey Alfie, tell him what name you came up with. Well, we came up with the name Pixar. And here's the origin of the name Pixar. It's the kind of like little short stories. Hey. We were going out to lunch one day, and we thought Alfie has a background in Spanish, so we figured, what's basically what's a Latin? I think it's this is like Latin for picture. Basically, it was like picture, picture image or picture capture, and basically what is then they thought, okay, let's kind of soup that up a little. So picture laser, and together that sound like pick laser. So it's like. Pixar for like Pix Laser, and then they kind of thought, what sounds better than that? Pixar. And that's the origin of the name. So they have a name, and they have a dream, and they have a next project. Cut to 86, where George Lucas in a cameo. George Lucas is played by, let's see what Georgie Boy looks like.
God, okay, hold on, sorry. Oh, yes, Georgie Boy. I typed in 1980s George Lucas.
Yeah, that's appropriate. Yeah, so. And bear on, this is George Lucas, like after Return of the Jedi,
right?
And this is George Lucas reeling from a divorce too. So this is why Lucas has a lot of problems going on at this moment. He has, like Lucasfilm is not in financial trouble, but he is like, he has to keep his priorities focused, which is why he essentially in this scene, George Lucas played by Jeffrey Cantor.
And this is perfect, Dragon. This is, oh man. As soon as I saw this actor, I was like, yep, I know this guy. He would be a perfect Lucas. I could see it.
Olsen from Daredevil. Essentially, again, George Lucas again has a very non-aggressive. And again, I like how we get to see kind of the transition. I'm kind of going for a thing here, where we have Ed Hansen, who's very cutthroat, very hey, you're fired. Or we have George Lucas. We're getting like a myriad of interesting boss-like figures. Mm-hmm. George Lucas, he's very saying, guys, I got to let you go. I'm not a software company. I'm not in the market. I have what you guys have created for me, and I'm very grateful, and it's very useful. But I love what you guys are doing, but I can't keep you on the payroll. I'm going through a divorce right now, guys. Right, and he wishes them the best. And guys, I wish you the best of luck, though. You can still use the facilities. Just again, which essentially they worked out some agreement where they can still use Lucasfilm the campus, but they can't. Anyway, we'll get into that later. So Ed tells John on the way out again. It's like, oh boy, this poor John Lasseter character. Why does nothing work out for him? And you're starting. He's yet
like Charlie Brown.
Exactly, but luckily, and this is what happened in history, in '85, Ed Catmull kind of realized this was on the horizon, so he tells John on the way out, "Hey, John, listen, don't look so glum. Uh, I've been hunting for an investor. I'd like you to meet him. I think I found a guy who can kind of basically we can market the image computer, and we can kind of have like our own company going on here. Let's essentially, hey, let's call it Pixar, and we get a whole thing worked up here." And they meet Steve Jobs.
Oh boy. Okay.
So we're introduced to Steve Jobs.
God, Dragon, these characters are coming so fast, man.
So Steve Jobs, of course, Steve Jobs, again, pivotal character, the entrepreneur, and Steve Jobs, and contextually, this is in '85. Steve Jobs, he was fired from Apple. He's in a fragile state, and the idea is this guy was looking for the next Apple, and he saw that in Pixar. And that's very much kind of what it's very much kind of where Jobs is, and Jobs. Ed Catmull's kind of said this about the Steve Jobs movie, by the way, that kind of he didn't look at kind of the ugly side of Steve Jobs enough, and I kind of went in the middle ground of that. I want to show the realistic, frustrated
the
Steve
Jobs movie is in Steve Jobs or is in Jobs?
No, not Steve Jobs, the Michael Fassbender one.
Okay, I think that one definitely got into the ugly side of his personality.
Well,
I don't know what movie that guy watched.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying that. Remember, Ed Catmull. I addressed it in the movie. Ed Catmull had a really ugly. He saw the ugly side of Steve Jobs a lot, and they felt that they kind of basically. He says Steve Jobs is like a little too much in the right in that movie, but anyway, it's not important. The point is, it's a fragile Steve Jobs looking for the next Apple, and he's played by like Blue Moon. I'd say Michael Fassbender, but realistically, I went with someone who was in Steve Jobs, just not Michael Fassbender. I went with the Andy Hertzfeld character. I went with Michael.
Oh, okay.
Schrober.
Yeah, I could see that.
Also, he was Griff in Men in Black 3. I mean, he's a good actor, and honestly, I think he looks like young Steve Jobs.
Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, I could buy it, and I thought, I like the guy and other stuff. I give him a shot as Steve Jobs. If I couldn't get Fassbender, I go with this guy.
Dragon, I'm going to keep your root image as like the last person you've talked about, just because it's just a headache for me to keep going back and forth to the Laster thing. Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, okay, so let's see. We meet Steve Jobs, and essentially, Steve Jobs, he too dreams of a film done on the computer. Again, like it makes sense for Steve Jobs, a guy who
I dream of films done on computers. I'm sorry.
No, seriously, that kind of makes sense though. If a guy who he's all about kind of the innovation of a computer, like all kind of the ways you can upgrade a computer,
sure.
You would imagine that his dream would very much coalesce with their dreams. So I'm reading into kind of making a thematic thing, but I think there's a lot of truth in that. They all did want to make the first computer animated film, and I feel that's kind of what Steve's main goal is. Hey, I'm going to top Apple by having the software to make films on computer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's see. So basically, he lays out a plan. Basically, as he lays out this plan, we see it unfold visually. So basically, as he kind of lays out kind of what his vision is for the Pixar company and investing in this company. Basically lays out, well, here's what we're going to do, John. Again, like he seems, it's Steve Jobs, so initially seems very friendly, and he's very, again, kind of forthright with John Lasseter. Again, he seems to be like a friendly guy.
Mm-hmm.
So he's giving a sales pitch almost. He sells them on basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to sell the computer to medical doctors, and we see the Pixar image computer being produced. You see the factory, we see that really cool design of the image computer, that big block with like the little indentation on the old Pixar logo for the Luxor lamp.
Sure,
so we see those like being produced, being manufactured, and then we see him saying, "I'll sell the computer to doctors and medical science," because the image computer was used for medical imaging software, and that was kind of the big marketplace of it at that time. Which we see Steve Jobs giving the sales pitch to many doctors, many medical professionals, and he hopes John Lasseter. And he says, "And what you can do, John, you guys can make some short films to advertise, to advertise the computer, so it will sell even better. And again, people can use it for stuff other than medical." And then basically kind of ends with, "So, John, any ideas?" We cut to John just in his office, a little bit of comedy here. It's like, I have literally no idea what I'm going to make this film on. This is like the opportunity of a lifetime, and I'm stumped. I got nothing.
Nice.
And he's just looking around, and he just kind of like, we hear the Luxor lamp sound as the lamp just kind of tilts lower, like. And basically, it's like literally he grabs the lamp and he kind of like he turns it on for a moment. He's kind of dark, and it's literally a light bulb moment. It's like idea. So then we see, and this is something I tried pulling here, where we. I guess I'll say this too. Like, let's just say he had like ideas on paper, like he had little drawings, a little reference to Red's dream. Like he had like a little red unicycle drawn there. He had like the Luxo ball drawn, but he had no like kind of film concept yet. So like ideas were in the works, but nothing substantial. Then he had the Luxo idea. So basically, we see what John Lasseter would do with all of these shorts back then, especially like Red's dream. But I made it Luxo. We see a montage of John Lasseter working night and day animating, which was a very slow process back then.
Oh yeah,
he's rendering it. We see his car is parked there, like day night. Sun's coming out, sun's going down. His car is in the same place, and like he did back then, while he was rendering, he's like looking at it frustrated, like, oh god, take it forever. He is sleeping under his desk with a little futon. He has a futon under his desk. It's very kind of Better Call Saul-esque. The guy sleeps in his office. That's what he's doing here while he's waiting for it to render. And again, the time is passing, and then basically a time like he wakes up in the morning. He clicks and he hears the sound. He sees the film. And again, we don't see it, but we hear it, and we see John Lasseter's reaction to it, and he's so excited. Cut to the screening at the SIGGRAPH conference, which basically got a resounding and hilariously absurd people going gaga for a lamp.
Oh God! Okay.
It's like literally the crowd cheers like it was the Oscars. Like, yeah, these are guys. Bear in mind, see the SIGGRAPH conferences. What they did is they had like less than a commercial play, like a few seconds of footage play. Like, hey, we made a sphere go circular, a circular motion. They would say, yeah, and then this film happens, and they're going nuts. So essentially, and it's like, let's see. So that's. Basically, that's all of 86. And then we have, we're getting very close to the end here, folks. Okay, 88. 88, thinking crowd distance. 1988, Ed shows a tape of Tin Toy, basically a VHS tape of Tin Toy, which won the Oscar, by the way, which gets name dropped, but we don't spend time at the Oscars for it. So basically, Ed shows the tape of Tin Toy to Steve Jobs. And this is the heated thing I was talking about. This is like what Ed Catmull was talking about with the whole Steve Jobs. We get an ugly scene with Steve Jobs here. Where Ed's showing a tape of Tin Toy Steve Jobs with Alvy in the room. It got more heated towards Alvy, but I kept a little bit more towards Ed. So, which leads to the heated conversation of, look, I know it's impressive. Steve's kind of snapped. Look, he's just more frustrated than irrational. I went with. So, I know it's impressive, Ed. You don't need to show me the tape God knows how many times. I get it. It's impressive. It's cool. It won an Oscar. I get it. But between this and selling caps to Disney, the cap system to Disney, we're hitting a dead end here. I can't sell any more of the computers. Everyone who has one already has one. I'm losing $1 million a year on this company. I mean, again, there's no more Pixar Image computers to sell. And Alvy's kind of saying, well, "Are you giving up on us?" And says, "No, we're hitting a dead." I'm sorry, there's no. I'm not giving up. I'm doing the best I can. He just really shouts it. He gets in Alvy's face like he did back in the original meeting. He shouts in Alvy's face. I'm just doing the best I can. All right. I don't, because again, this is all Steve Jobs has right now. He's trying to get the next Apple. So this is not panning out to be what I want. I want to abandon this thing, but I just can't because he's a perfectionist. He just can't abandon it because he knows it can work. And he knows the population, if they're smart, they're going to buy into this, but they're not. And he storms out. He storms out, and let's see. This is and again, this is very much. Again, that's just he storms out of the room. There, it's a very kind of it's like, oh boy, things are. Steve Jobs is trying best he can. Okay, 1990. We meet Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Oh boy.
Jeffrey Katzenberg, of course, played by the wonderful. And again, this is the first casting choice of all.
This was pretty much like the thing that got this whole thing in motion, as you were saying.
Element. Now that I was thinking about it, it's this and also the Founder. Just watching the Founder
just
and
the Founder in general, I can see that. Yeah,
the Founder got me in the biopic headspace, and I was thinking back to Katzenberg. So it was the Founder and Stanley Tucci is Katzenberg.
Okay,
so again,
of course.
Katzenberg. And Stanley Tucci. And what's cool is honestly the only thing I really need to add in the past is give him like the hair on the sides and the glasses. And
it really is a splitting image, especially in the facial structure. Yeah. Like he's got that same sort of nose and like mouth
Oh yeah, oh my god, I love Stanley Tucci. I think he's just perfect for Katzenberg. So anyway, but what we have here, we have a big scene here. We introduce it's kind of the Emperor and Darth Vader. Jeffrey Katzenberg being Darth Vader, who again does turn good in the end. Yeah, I'm just saying that with Jeffrey Katzenberg as a mixed bag, kind of like how Vader is not all bad. We have Jeffrey Katzenberg, we have Tom Schumacher, who was Tom Schumacher.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Tom Schumacher. Right.
Tom Schumacher. Of course, he was the producer of Lion King, and he kind of oversaw many aspects of the Renaissance. He was a huge champion of Rescuers Down Under. He was the guy who this is the guy who pushed caps. This is the guy who's saying, let's do things on computer, and let's do a whole film with the cap system. So again, this guy, he was rooting for Pixar. He was essentially Pixar's cheerleader during this time, and he was kind of the facilitator between Katzenberg and Pixar. Mm-hmm. The middleman, and he's played by a wonderful actor, Giovanni Ribisi.
Hell yeah!
Which I think is good casting.
I think that is fantastic casting, Dragon.
So, and then they're talking to essentially the Emperor of this movie. And right now it's like in the background, kind of like he was in Empire. And of course, when we get into it, he's going to be kind of the the Emperor of it all here. So we have Michael Eisner, played by a familiar face, Dominic Lombards. His last name's kind of challenging.
Lombardozzi.
Yeah, Lombardozzi.
Right.
Yeah, Dominic Lombardozzi here. What do you? Of course, he played Wilson Fisk's father, and he's a character actor. He's been in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely kind of. Not a very well-known actor. He's definitely been in a few really pivotal roles, of course. I think he'd work well. I think it's appropriate to maybe not have someone that well-known for Eisner, someone who can just sink into the character. And just judging by his face, I mean, he definitely kind of has like the swarmy kind of, like Eisner face going on. I could see it.
Yeah. Also, he kind of sounds like Eisner too, just not as.
I can see it, yeah.
Anyway, so essentially, what's happening here is Jeffrey Katzenberg and Tom Schumacher are trying to sell Eisner on hiring Lasseter back. Of course, Lasseter, because basically they've been keeping tabs on Lasseter with this rise in the computer and animation field. Which the idea is Tom Schumacher brought this up to Jeffrey Katzenberg, and Jeffrey Katzenberg sees potential in this. Because say what you will about Jeffrey Katzenberg, the guy does have vision. Mm-hmm. And that's the interesting thing. Basically, Jeffrey Katzenberg is kind of the John Lasseter who became corporate. That's essentially the parallel. It's such a fascitating dichotomy.
I like that.
Katzenberg and Lasseter. Those two guys are kind of they're the parallels of the movie. Uh-huh. So Tom is basically Tom is kind of advocating caps in the meeting, saying, "Look at the potential of this new animation, Michael. It's fantastic." And basically, look at what Tom Schumacher says here. And of course, he helped us on various other projects, before Lion King as well. But, again, Rescuers and all that sort of stuff. And let's see. So Jeffrey knows without a doubt. He's so overconfident with this. That's the thing. Tucci's owning the room, and the idea is like Tony owns the room. Tucci owns the room, like Saul Goodman thinks he owns the courtroom. That's kind of the confidence level that this guy has. It's like, what if John Lasseter's success went to his head? That's Jeffrey Katzenberg. So, basically he's saying, look, I knows the future of computer animation, Michael. And again, the point goes to Michael, this time before things really sour in their relationship. It's like saying, come on, Michael, I know what I'm talking about. Look at the Disney Renaissance. Look at the other stuff we got cooking here. I know what I'm doing here. He points out that Pixar will be desperate enough to come back, and John Lasseter will be leading the charge, and we'll take Pixar as a kindness to them. He's being kind of the virulent businessman in a way here. And look, did you hear the news? They're moving to Point Richmond because they're losing money. It's a matter of time. They'll be desperate. I give him a job offer. He'll come.
Oh, man.
It's a matter of time. And again, he's championing Lasseter, but at the same time, he's kind of putting him down. So Katzenberg is such a mixed bag. It's wonderful.
I like it. Katzenberg is kind of like the bizarro, like, anti-hero.
I know. So let's see. So again, Katzenberg, Michael Eisner gives him the okay. Like, all right, fine, Jeffrey. You're in charge of the animation division here. By all means, go on. He's not. There might be a throwaway line about how you're going behind Peter Schneider's back. Because honestly, I could have made I debated Peter Schneider would have been the bad guy in this movie had I put him in there, because he was, in my research, he was kind of the bad guy during Toy Story.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised you didn't have him in there.
I know, but here's the thing. I mean, Schneider, we look upon him so nicely these days. And
Peter Schneider, it was kind of like he was sort of like the vice president to Katzenberg in terms of like evilness.
I know that's the thing, and at the same time, it's like, we like Peter Schneider, and I didn't want to do him. That's the thing. It's like I because we love Wake and Sleep Doing. It's like I don't want to offend Peter Schneider with this by making him a bad guy, and it was interesting, but I just went.
And honestly, I think Katzenberg is the type of person who would kind of be like, "Oh yeah, I kind of was the bad guy there, wasn't I? I can own it." You know what I mean?
That's the thing. It's like, I don't want to. Yeah, you're right. Katzenberg would own it.
Like, it seems like he would own it more. Yeah.
So I just figured it would give Katzenberg more layers to play. If I just like Schneider might have a line, if not be there, not really at all. Just
so it's kind of, and you're kind of doing a similar thing to me, where it's like you acknowledge that there's other people who were in the room when this stuff happened, but you're focusing on the people who were, the biggest impact to the overall story. So yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's see. So now we have John. He's bouncing. We have a sad scene here. Where, like, it's not sad; it's a struggling scene. Where John Lasseter he's bouncing his checkbook, and you see there's some problems while he's doing that. John Lasseter has 5 sons. So he has 1 son at this point, and his wife's pregnant. We meet Nancy Lasseter, played by.
Okay, hold on. Darn it, Dragon! This is what happens when I have to flip back and forth all the time.
I thought you said you were just going to use the root.
I know, and then I went back and then see what happened. Anyways, I think there we go.
Yes, we have Nancy. She's at the vineyard right now. That's where she's at. In case anyone just wanted a random kind of field picture of Nancy Lasseter. No, they have a vineyard. So we have this is a modern Nancy Lasseter. I didn't specify. It's fine because she looks pretty consistent actually in their pictures.
Mm-hmm.
It's Nancy Lasseter, and she'd be played by the wonderful Jennifer Goodwin from Once Upon a Time and from Zootopia.
And I think this is, again, fantastic casting.
Oh, yeah. Of course, I think she's well-spoken, very motherly. And again, I just think she's really good. I've been watching Once Upon a Time. I have a few Once Upon a Time actors in here I'm very proud of. So Jennifer Goodwin, I thought was solid casting. I went through a bunch with Nancy Lasseter to find the right one. I just kind of think Jennifer Goodwin has the acting.
It's solid. It's really solid.
So essentially here, and she's asking, her role increases of importance, but she's like here and there for the kind of first 2 acts, and she gets more important in the 3rd act.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, she's pregnant, she's asking John if everything's okay, and again, John Lasseter puts on a smile saying, just, we're new building jitters, basically saying, because now they're moving to Point Richmond, which is a dump, essentially. So we're moving to a dump, but hey, it's fine, everything's fine. Again, as he's bouncing the checkbook, they're running into money issues, but she's kind of hiding that from her.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of like the punctuation that scene is a transition to a call, like the phone rings, and we know who's calling. It's Jeffrey Katzenberg. Jeffrey Katzenberg is calling. We don't see that conversation yet. He gets a call, and basically he's it's like punctuated by Ed Catmull saying, "You said no? Why did you say no?" And it basically says, "Look, Ed, I want to make this work." And Steve, it's out of respect for Steve Jobs, John Lasseter turned down the job offer. Like, I believe in what I could be a director at Disney. That's what they want to hire me back to do, Ed. But I want to make history, like you guys want to make. I want to make history. We all want to make history here with computer animation. The first computer animated film. So that's what we're going to do here. Then John, he makes the dump homely as he goes to the. He goes to Point Richmond, and it looks like an abysmal dump. And he basically decorates his desk. He puts toys in the really crappy room, and he puts the Luxo lamp there. And it's just, again, it's like oh, this poor guy. He's just trying to make it work. And again, he had a job offer to go back at Disney, but he's sticking with his guns. It's the little engine that could company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. So then we have earlier. John Lasseter and Ralph Guggenheim. Again, this is John Lasseter being proactive in an abysmal situation. This is John Lasseter being the problem solver. John Lasseter gets Ralph Guggenheim, who is a producer, and Ralph Guggenheim. They hold a strategy meeting, and they're trying to kind of help alleviate all of Steve Jobs' worries. They're trying to fix Pixar. How do we get this thing working? We got long-term goals, man. So they kind of gather the crew around. They get around. Basically, we see as we list it's like a 3-step thing, and as they're listed, we see it happening before us. So. It's kind of like Woody kind of giving like the whole, like wind the frog type thing. Like, here's the plan. Here's how we get out of here. I guess it's more like the Nemo sort of like the escape from the dentist office. Anyway, So, okay, step one, we get new CalArts Town, which we see John Lasseter hire Andrew Stanton and Pete Docter. We get them in the fray now. This is still 1990s. Hey, let's hire Andrew Stanton. Andrew Stanton played by Josh Dallas.
All right.
Of course, Once Upon a Time. I love this character. Once Upon a Time. I had 3 actors for Andrew Stanton. I was like, I just got to come on. I went with Josh Dallas in the end. He's a good actor, and I think he looks especially like modern day Andrew Stanton. But what the heck he can pull it off. And Pete Docter. Pete Docter, of course, now.
I love this casting, Dragon, and I tried to get a picture where this guy was in a similar pose. So he's being played by
Bill Hader.
In a similar pose. You like that?
Yeah.
Kind of like, thoughtful, just sitting down, very thoughtful.
Yeah, there was another actor that looked remarkably like Pete Docter from The Office, but he was like he's modern day Pete Docter, not young Pete Docter. They can get away with Bill Hader, and Bill Hader, of course, kind of chameleon, can play anything. So, yeah. Okay, so we're hiring Andrew Stanton, we're hiring Pete Docter. Again, those guys are going to be important in Act 2. Of course, John Lasseter's new friendships, those guys. Let's see, and they're going to be making commercials, and we see, he hires them, and they're making commercials, basically like Listerine, Trident gum, those stuff in the works. We see like them animating on the Pixar image computers. Step 2, TV specials. We see John developing the Tin Toy Christmas special, like he's getting some boards up, he's pitching it. Basically, the idea, Tin Toys in the works. Step 3, we do a feature. We basically are building, we work our way up to feature. That's like their plan. Like a very simple goal. We do commercials, we do TV, then we do a movie. We work our way up to movie, baby steps. And as they say feature, we see Jeffrey Katzenberg walking the halls of Disney as Joe Ranft is in the story room. Again, like intersection, like almost he is that close to intersection.
Right.
In that moment, and it's like Jeffrey's asking like the secretary, any calls from John Lasseter? No? Darn it. It's like Katzenberg again. I had him so pinned down, but he's surprising me, darn it. Okay, 1991. Here we go. This is the big moment here. So John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, and Pete Docter. We see they're bonding over working on commercials. We see them. They're asking the origin of Tin Toy, which John Lasseter gives them, which essentially you see them bonding over family and then kind of their love of illogical logic. The whole toys. I was looking at a video of my nephew, and basically I saw how he treated his toys, and that kind of made me think, what would that be like from a toy's perspective? And they all kind of fell in love with that idea. Like, it'd be really great to do a movie about that. Okay, let's see. So then Katzenberg gets frustrated. He calls for a meeting. Darn it, call for a meeting. Bring him here. Bring him to Disney. I'm gonna get Lasseter here. It's the last thing I do. So as it happened in real life, folks. Here, and this is the last scene here. So John Lasseter, Ed Catmull, Bill Reeves, and Ralph Guggenheim. Again, John's the focus here. So they're all there. So, Katzenberg, and I love how this is like pulled from real life here. Katzenberg, he works the room. Again, he's owning the room like Tucci would. And like he did, he singles out John Lasseter, saying, John, look at what I did to get you here. Like, again, he's just directing John Lasseter. He's like ignoring all the other guys in the room, saying, John, I wanted to get you here. And I was determined to do a movie with you, and I'm going to do a movie with you. I don't care what it takes. If whatever it takes to get you to do a movie for us. So if you want to come to Disney, we'll work something else out, which essentially is, we'll work, a distribution deal, essentially what he's alluding to. Whatever it takes, and he assures him that, and again, basically the idea is Katzenberg has done his research knowing that, Lasseter will have a distrust of Disney because he was fired because they didn't have the vision. And Katzenberg, again, the goal here is that Tucci's going to be so silver-tongued. He's going to sell the audience, kind of like how Keaton sells the audience in The Founder. He's going to sell the audience and sell Lasseter, because again, he's the sales pitch to Lasseter was really wronged by Disney, saying, hey, I understand those guys didn't have vision. I have vision. You and I want the same thing. And, again, they do want the same thing, a computer animated film, because it is the future. And they're both smart enough to see it, and that's essentially what he's spinning here. Look at some of the other stuff we got going on here. Some of your other CalArts student pals, basically some of the other graduates from your classic CalArts. Tim Burton, he was working on Nightmare Before Christmas. John Musker, Ron Clements, they got them working on stuff. Why not join the fray, John? And again, he says he understands his hesitancy.
Sorry, I love this writing on Katzenberg because it's so like, join us, John, join us. It's so cult leader like.
And you got to remember, Katzenberg has to be kind of charming because John does strike up a bit of a friendship with Katzenberg initially.
Sure.
That look, John, I understand your hesitancy. I get it.
I could just see Tucci like elongating the John every time he says John. Like, look, John.
And then this is famously what he did in this meeting here, by the way. He says, I want to be very faithful, because you can't write this beautiful thing.
Right.
You can't write this. He understands the hesitancy, and he says, look, even if I understand you can get past what happened to you in the past. You've heard rumors. I've seen the character. This is a reference to Wake and Sleep Beauty. I've seen the characters. He's holding up like a little clipboard and says, look at these. Yeah, here you go. Take him in. He takes some of the ridiculous caricatures of Jeffrey Katzenberg over the years, and he shows them to John. He's owning the reputation he's garnered for being, being a tyrant. And he literally said, I'll admit, I'm a tyrant. But I'm right. I am a tyrant, self-admitted. They call me a tyrant. I am one. I'm owning that. But I'm right. This is the future. Tin Toy. That's the future. And so I looked over what you guys want to do. You want to do a Tin Toy Christmas special? I'm going to say this. If you can do 30 minutes, you can do 90. I'm going to greenlight you guys for a movie. Join us. It doesn't actually say. I'm spitballing a little bit of this though. I'm saying essentially that's the driving thing here. Is like, hey, I'm gonna give you guys everything you want. You want to keep your animated film? I'm gonna allow you to do that. Just work with us here. Not as a TV special, full length feature. And here's the kicker. I added here is like, I promise you, we're gonna make the first full length computer animated film. What do you say, John? Are you ready to make history?
Nice.
In that ending, it does two things. One, again, the whole promise thing connecting the Joe Ramps thing. And in the whole we're here to make history, which John, he didn't go with Disney because he wants to make history. He wanted to make history, and like the big triumphant little beat of this scene, like ... He walks out of the meeting. John picks up a phone. He's so happy, he's so excited, so eager. He calls Joe Ramp. Joe Ramp picks up the phone. He says, "We're making a movie." That's the end of Act 1, baby. That's the end.
All right. Well, Dragon, let me just say, I think you are very ambitious with what you're planning to do, man. I mean, this feels like the first act of the Shakespearean epic, my friend. I am very excited. The one thing I kind of have to criticize you for is, honestly, I think you kind of introduced too many characters too soon. And I'm curious to see how you're going to go through and sort of like juggle all these characters that you've set up, like who, and I know you've said that some of them are only going to get like a lot one of them scene
or one-offs will be in the back.
But I don't know. I guess to me, like just Act 1 focusing so much on like, oh, here's this guy and here's this guy and here's this guy. Like the big driving force of Act 1 for me was definitely all the Lasseter stuff. All the Lasseter stuff is gold. You nail that character. You turn him into a rootable biopic hero. So good job for you, sir.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yay for me.
Yeah. Yay for you. Indeed. Anyways, Dragon, here's the dealio, Dragon. I said that we would have to maybe break this up into two parts if this became over... if this became over an hour and a half long, and indeed this has become over an hour and a half long, buddy. So I think what we'll have to do is actually break this up into 3 acts.
That might not be the worst idea.
I don't think it would either, because clearly you have a ton of stuff to do, and I don't want to rush you, and I also don't want to make this a 5-hour podcast, and there's also other things I could do to my pitch in the meantime to kind of, pad it out a little bit. I need to kind of work some things together. So what do you say, Dragon? You want to do this in Act 2 and Act 3 and 3 different podcasts throughout the week as we cover more Talking Mr. Banks material?
I guess.
All right, sounds good. Any final thoughts about mine, Dragon? So far?
Well, I'm intrigued by yours. I'm really I'm dying for the strike of it all, to be honest with you.
I'm telling you, Act 2 is all about the strike. Act 2 is all about the strike and the war. So that's like the big meat of the story. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I'm loving the setup and reveals in yours. That's the main.
Okay.
I think your casting's very solid too. So that I'm liking. I really want the. I'm hoping the Walt stuff gets really kind of in focused on. That's the one thing I really would like.
I mean, honestly, I thought the Walt stuff. I will give you a tease and say that is actually sits out just because of the timeline. Like, here's the deal. Basically, the 3 timelines are Act 1 is essentially like you saw, like everything from, like Walt is an early cartoonist up until when Snow White's about to premiere. And then Act 2 is going to be basically everything from Fantasia flopping. Like, Fantasia flopping is going to be kind of like the big thing that sets off the events of Act 2, all the way up until like the studio strike and then the war effort, and then Walt kind of hedging all his bets on Cinderella. And then Act 3 is going to be basically everything from Disneyland to his death. Definitely kind of like sweeping over Mary Poppins, because we don't want to infringe on the Saving Mr. Banks stuff. So those are the 3 eras I have, Dragon. I do have casting for Walt's daughters, but I have casting for Walt's daughters as adults, and you won't get to see them until the next time, or until the 3rd act, I should say. The 3rd act is when Walt's daughters become adults. Let's just assume they're just, good child actors,
Well, I'd like to think maybe get Melissa Disney somehow worked into your pitch.
It's not really. I mean, it's not really my place to hypothetically say what Disney family members should do what. I'd feel a bit uncomfortable with that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like a cameo. I'm not saying they have to be, like a big
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it's kind of touchy. It'd be like writing Ron Miller into a cameo. It's like, yeah, I'd rather not. But so I'm definitely, like I said, I guess the 2 big casting things that we have to go through next time with mine are Mary Blair, who's one of my favorite animators, and of course she got her start with stuff like Cinderella, Peter Pan, and she was working at the studio as a background artist before then, and she has a very interesting role within the context of the strike and everything. And then, of course, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, who are going to be essentially the Sherman brothers of this movie. They're basically going to be kind of like Walt's go-to boys, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you want a job done right? Go to Frank and Ollie, And that'll, of course, cause some tension with the strikers. So I'm just kind of setting up and giving some teases and everything. All right, any teases you want to give for your 2nd act, Dragon?
Oh boy, my 2nd act, it's chock full, I gotta tell you folks. But
I'm sure it is, and that's why I needed to cut the video short.
Essentially, folks, Act 2 is going to take us through the making of Toy Story, which is a beautiful, oh boy, it's a thrill. The Toy Story stuff's a thrill ride, and it really is. So Toy Story is going to be a thrill ride, got some ups and downs, and boy, is it going to be, it's going to have some intense stuff towards the latter half of the Toy Story stuff. We have a really great scene with Katzenberg, a really meaty scene with Katzenberg, just kind of like, Katzenberg and the young Lasseter have a scene together that's really astonishing. It's really like, it's kind of, let's just say it's kind of, we hit upon the Ants era a little bit. And I'm really excited for Act 3. Act 3 is going to do something really, building something really big with Act 3. And let's just say, going forward, too, I guess prepare you for is that when we reach the era of Toy Story 2, it's going to be it's kind of a sandwich. It's kind of Toy Story with a little bit of ants in between. Well, I know they did both, so I'm just saying the ants kind of,
No, I hear you. That's definitely a story, for sure.
That's what I'm saying. It's like more like kind of the ants controversy. So it's kind of,
right.
The point is, that's kind of the main structure of Act 2, and let's see. Let's say when we get to kind of the Toy Story 2 of it all, that's when we start to do kind of the Stephen Root, but we use enough practical makeup things that we can just not CG them necessarily. Just, we youth them up a little bit because again, that's when we start to reach a point where Lasseter looks very consistent to what he is. So that's when we'll have him basically take over, and he'll be in all of Act 3. So we have Stephen Root in all of Act 3, but kind of the end of Act 2.
For sure. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us on this pitch. This is both kind of a review of DirectEars and also the first of many Talking Mr. Banks that are going to be on this channel in the future, because it's something I'm really wanting to focus on for you guys going forward. I definitely want to do at least 2 to 3 proper Talking Mr. Banks Disney podcasts in a row, at least. I'm sorry, not in a row, but, weekly, at least 2 to 3. So, yeah, so I guess with that in mind, folks, just stay tuned and have a good night.